Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time, as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. Today, I want to talk about a really fantastic game on the PlayStation 5, Sucker Punch's Ghost of Tsushima. Now, I got this game right as it launched on the PlayStation 4. Actually, my friend got it, and I bought The Last of Us Part 2, and we decided we were going to swap after we finished each of the games, and then we'd be able to play both of them without having to buy both of them. So I got to play it right off right out the gate, and I played it on my PlayStation 4 Pro, played through the entire first act, completed as much as I possibly could, and then had to give it back. So it wasn't until a couple years later that I got the PS5 Director's Cut and was finally able to finish the game. And I finished that just a couple months ago now. And I wanted to talk about it because it is absolutely phenomenal. Now, Sucker Punch's open world, first and foremost, they created a gorgeous game. This game is full of wonderful things to find. It's really fun to explore, and the environment, again, is just so well crafted. It really feels like you understand the history of this island going onto it. You can feel it brimming with culture and with all these just beautiful imagery. I think they handcrafted this game so well. And that's one of the first striking things that you notice when you get out into the open world of the game is how well designed it is. Traversal is really nice. The horse is great. Having a horse in a game is fantastic. If there's no vehicles, that's the best way to get around. And it's just all really nice. But to start off, the game starts off with you as Jin Sakai, a samurai who is going to fight with the rest of the samurai on the island to defend from the Mongol invasion. After going down and watching the rest of the samurai brethren fall, you go down to a couple of arrows, but you're still conscious. And you see Lord Shimura, your uncle and the leader of the samurai here, being interrogated by Kotal Khan, telling him to surrender and yield his island to the Mongol invasion. When Lord Shimura refuses, he slashes him across the face with his sword, and Jin passes out. When he wakes up, he's in someone's house. Someone has dragged him away from the battlefield, found out that he was still alive, put him into her house to care for him, helps him recover from his wounds as much as he can, and then tells him they need to get out of there. So she teaches him how to sneak around. She's a thief. And when he follows her, she shows him some things that she does that's very much against samurai code. Samurais are very honorable. They fight their battles head on. They don't do anything in the shadows. But she shows him how to navigate this area to get away from the Mongols. And at one point, you're forced to actually assassinate someone from behind because there's no other way out. When you do, you see a flashback to when Jin is younger, talking with his dad, learning about samurai code. And these flashbacks happen with him and his father, him and Lord Shimura, learning and figuring out how to be a samurai and knowing, having this code ingrained into him from such an early age. And so you see this happen over the course of the game. You see these flashback sequences as he becomes something new, something different. So initially, you start off very much a samurai, knowing exactly what you're supposed to do, following through to the end, even until death. And when you're saved from death, now you're presented with a new option for survival. But not only survival, but also being able to fight back, being able to really stick it to the Mongols. All the samurai were defeated. Hundreds of samurai were defeated on a single battle. But once you're able to utilize this new method of sneaking around, suddenly you have more options. And Jin starts to realize this as the game goes on. The more you sneak around, the more you embrace this ghost side of yourself, the more you're able to find weapons and allies to fight back against the Mongol invasion. Now, I've talked about the open world. It is very large. It is very expansive. There's a lot to do. And unlike a lot of other open world games, there's enough to do that if you go on your horse for about 20 seconds, 30 seconds, you're likely going to find some point of interest that will draw your attention and lead you to do a little side quest, or lead you to a main quest, or like a legendary quest, stuff like that. You can't go very far without finding something fun and meaningful to do. That's what I really want to praise Sucker Punch for. They've crafted a world that's really enjoyable to explore while filling it with really good things to do. There's no real busy work. It doesn't really feel like busy work ever. The only thing that kind of feels that way is when you see Mongols carrying prisoners and you have to go save them. It can feel a little samey, but it's still nice. You are rescuing people that need rescuing people from dangers that they can't defend themselves against. It's really, really fantastic. I think they've struck a really good balance between exploration and actually fun things to do as well. And the main story is absolutely phenomenal. It's not like a Bethesda RPG where the side quests really shine, but the main quest is, so-so. It is very phenomenal. As you explore throughout the region and you do these side quests, you'll go through the main story as well. And this is gathering allies, upgrading your ghost weapons, finding new things to do with your ghost weapons, finding new ones. You'll go all the way from shurikens to smoke bombs, sticky bombs, even poison darts. There's so much to do and so much to explore and unlock for Jin. And as you embrace this ghost side of yourself, you have the option throughout the game to be more honorable or be more ghost-like. You always have these ghost weapons, but you don't have to use them. For the first half of the game, I think I was primarily doing the more honorable things. I was sneaking around when I needed to, but I wasn't assassinating people. Whenever you get the option, if you see a group of Mongols, you can challenge them to a standoff, which is where you have to hold your position until they try and charge you. Once they do, you let go of the button that you're holding, and it slashes them, it instant kills them. Now, if you can level that up, you get more and more options to kill more people. Another one will charge you, and you can time it to kill him in one hit. You can get a lot of chain kills that way, which is a really cool mechanic. I love the standoff mechanic. It's one of my favorites. I did standoffs almost every time when I'd come up to a group, primarily because the more I did it, the better I got at it, and the more Mongols I could kill immediately. I could kill off 5 at a time and either intimidate the rest of them to run away or pick off enough of them that the group wasn't too big. That's another thing that's really great about this game. Combat is phenomenal. You don't feel like a crazy, undefeatable warrior in this game. If you get into a group of Mongols bigger than 3 or 4, you're in a little bit of trouble. It's hard to get away from everyone. There will be sometimes people shooting arrows at you, throwing things at you. Different enemies have different weapon styles. Some of them are big with giant spears. Some of them have large swords. Some have a sword and shield that require different stances. You have to swap back and forth between the stances. You have to shift to a stance that breaks shields easier, or breaks their guard easier if they're holding a shield. Or you have another stance that is good against the large guys and again against swords. The different stances are easy to swap between. They're really interesting. As you unlock more of them, you'll start to experiment how to change between them on the fly while you're in combat. But if you get overwhelmed, you can really die pretty quickly. So utilizing ghost weapons is actually super important, or utilizing more honorable methods like the standoff to eliminate enemies quicker and then not have as many to deal with. Because combat is really well balanced. You have a lot of options to block, parry. You have the different stances to break guards easier. You have a bow and arrow to do some long distance stuff. And then you've got the ghost weapons for sneaking around and killing people inconspicuously. You have lots of tools at your disposal. And the more you use the samurai methods, everything stays about the same. But if you utilize the ghost weapons, the weather actually is affected by it. You'll see the storm start to roll in. You'll see lightning more. You'll see you'll see more of the island being engulfed in this dark storm. And it's very indicative of Jin's journey. The more he embraces this ghost side of himself, the more the island feels that as well. It's a very cool mechanic, and I think that they implemented it really well. It's something subtle that if you didn't really notice, you probably wouldn't recognize immediately. But that's a really excellent thing they were able to implement. Another thing that's fantastic about this game and what works super well that I really love is the waypointing system, the compass. If you pull up your map, you can see where to go on the map just like normal. But if you set an objective somewhere, if you set like a city off in the distance and you don't know where to go, it doesn't have a mini map up for you with a little compass. Instead, you have what's called the guiding wind. And it's really excellent. As soon as you set your objective, you can come out of the map, it will start blowing that direction that you're supposed to go. It's really subtle too. Initially, it's a nice gust of wind. You start going that direction and then it dies down. But if you need a reminder where you're going, since you don't have a compass, makes sense, you wouldn't have a compass back then, you can flick up on the control pad in the middle and it will refresh the wind. You'll get another gust of wind confirming which direction you're going. It's really a brilliant method for getting around having a mini map, because I think mini maps are kind of cumbersome, they're clunky. I don't really like them on my screen, and especially for a game like this that feels more realistic, more gritty. Having a map on screen is kind of weird. So to circumvent that, the guiding wind is a brilliant mechanic. You just flip up on the control pad. You don't have to open the map or anything. You just swipe up, and suddenly the wind will blow the direction you're supposed to go. That way you always know exactly where you're supposed to go. It's really excellent. If you ever get to a point where you don't want to be exploring the world, or you need to get somewhere quickly, there are fast travel methods. Once you've unlocked certain areas, you can fast travel back to them, providing that there isn't some event going on. Sometimes some areas are locked away if a specific story event is happening, but for the most part, you can fast travel. I found myself not fast traveling a whole lot, except for when I was mopping up completion stuff, side quests that I wanted to do. I would typically explore the world because there's so much to do. You have things like finding fox dens. The foxes will lead you to these little shrines that give you points toward a charm, a special charm, and upgrading charms. You have other things like little side quests that you could pop up that give you certain gear. You have legendary side quests that give you special armor or special weapons, special bows. Those ones are really fun to do because they reward you with an armor set that's really something different. Each armor set gives you a different set bonus. So wearing a certain armor set might give you an extra standoff enemy that you can kill. You get one for wearing the armor set and upgrading it fully. Then you'll find different skins for your weapon set, your armor set. There's lots of little incentives for exploring the world. And it also feels fun. A lot of them have puzzles, or like the big shrines have puzzles associated with them that you need to figure out how to traverse to get to the shrine. So you have an open world puzzle to get to that shrine. It's really well thought out, and I love finding these little things that you can do throughout the world. You also have these golden birds that if they pop up on screen, they'll lead you to something on the map that is a nice side quest, or a hot spring that'll increase your overall health, a bamboo strike place where if you complete it, you get a point toward increasing your resolve bar, which is your bar for executing special moves and healing yourself while in battle. It's really well designed that nothing feels super intrusive for you. It feels very organic and intuitive. When you find this bird guiding you, sweet, it guides you to something that will help you on your journey. There's some lore associated with that too, with Japanese folklore, that this bird is significant. The attention to detail is really phenomenal, and the way that they don't shove things down your throat, they just give you options to find. I think they implemented it perfectly. So traversal is fantastic, side quests are meaningful, the main story is phenomenal. The more you do the side quests with these other characters, recruiting them for your cause, the more you feel a better relationship with them, the more you feel like you can count on them in these big battles. As you go throughout the story, through Act 1, 2, and 3, you'll have a major battle associated with it, with some event kicking off. At the end of the first act, I'm going to be spoiling some of the story here. Hopefully I won't be getting too far into the weeds, but I will be spoiling things for Act 1 and 2 specifically. So if you want to skip forward a couple minutes, it's probably best at this point. So at the end of Act 1, you're able to free Lord Shimura. He actually didn't die from Kotal Khan. He is kept prisoner. You are able to free him, drive the Mongols back, and you find out that one of your friends from youth, now a Straw Hat Ronin, a kind of separate faction from the samurai, usually a separate entity, usually a little hostile toward each other. You find out that he has joined Kotal Khan and that he has betrayed you, which is a huge blow. After freeing your uncle, you're able to gather your troops. Your uncle starts to see that things are changing for Jin. You start to see that he's doubting these things that you're doing because you're supposed to be samurai. So he kind of reaffirms that this is what you need to be doing, but thank you for freeing me, all that stuff. So it's the relationship, you start to see a couple cracks here. You also learn early on in the story that Lord Shimura wanted to adopt Jin, that he plans to do so once they drive back the Mongol forces. He wants to adopt him and make him part of Clan Shimura, which would be a huge thing. That would make Jin very high up. He's already pretty high. His dad died early on to the Mongols, so he's the last of his clan, but joining Clan Shimura would give him a lot of glory, a lot of honor. But leading through Act 2, you start to embrace those ghost things a little more. And more. as you go through the story, you are forced to use some ghost items at specific moments. And at the end of Act 2, you actually get a new stance, a new like mechanic for killing enough enemies without getting hit. You get the ghost stance, where you get to become this very, very fearful entity where your enemies start to run from you, and you cut them down in one single strike or a couple strikes, but you do it in a really brutal fashion, cutting off their arms or cutting off their head. And it's quite brutal, but you're able to lead the charge. You unlock this stance as a way to defend this area in the Act 2, to defend these people who are defending their homeland. And the people start to believe in the ghost of Tsushima. They start to follow him and start to implement some of their own ways to be like the ghost, to fight back themselves. They start to get this drive. And Lord Shimura does not like it. The more and more you do these things, the more he sees that you are not only turning away from the samurai, but you're also gaining this reputation. There's some threat to not only the samurai, but also the shogun, who is over all of the samurai of Japan. And there's a lot of tension between them. At the end of Act 2, you poison a bunch of Mongols, and Lord Shimura arrests you and puts you in prison because of what you'd done. Fortunately, you are able to escape, and now you are butting heads with Lord Shimura. The story just leads from point to point so well, and your allies still support you, but Lord Shimura starts to turn, and it's really unfortunate. You get to this point where he tells you to renounce the ghost and become his son, and you tell him, "I am not your son, and I am the ghost of Tsushima." And that's when you get arrested. It's a huge turning point once you two start going against each other. Throughout Act 3, you are fighting with your allies. You're kind of regrouping after everything has gone down. The Mongols start using the poison that you created to fight them, which is really devastating for the people. But as you fight back and as you drive them back, you get to the point where you request help from Lord Shimura. You say, "I know we're not," you break into his place. It's actually a really fantastic stealth sequence. You break into his place of residence where he's holed up making his plans. After you gathered your allies to fight, you've decided you're going to drive them back one last push, and you want his help too. But you know getting caught would not be good for anybody. So you have to sneak in past all these guards. It's actually a phenomenal sequence. And you sneak in and hide a scroll. And by the time he gets to it and reads it, you're already long gone. But he does come to your aid in the final battle, and you all are able to drive back the Mongols and fight them. After defeating Kotal Khan, the end game starts, and this is a chance to mop up everything else that you can do. You actually have a chance, even after the final main story sequences finish, the post-game story stuff, you have the option to explore the world, which is nice. I like when games don't lock you out of the main world or tell you, like, this is the point of no return. I like having a justification for why you can still go back and do things. So you have options. I think the ending is so special, you really need to experience it yourself. I will not spoil it at all, but it is pretty powerful. The main story of Ghost of Tsushima is a 10 out of 10. It's one of the best video game stories I've experienced in a very long time, probably since The Last of Us. I think in terms of raw storytelling, Sucker Punch knocked it out of the park for this. There's also an expansion that is phenomenal. It's really, really fun. You go to an island and you learn of how these people on this island really hate the samurai, specifically Clan Sakai and your dad, because of how they treated the people when they came to put down some insurrection against the samurai earlier on. So there was a lot of hostility between them. There still exists, even with the Mongols invading, they have a lot of hostility towards samurai. So when you show up, you consider your identity, and you are captured by the leader of this island, the Mongols on this island. She poisons you. You have to go through these sequences where you are younger Jin on this island. You were actually there when your father was, when they killed a lot of the people there. And you get to experience firsthand how he relives this experience and how it kind of scarred him, how these things hurt him, and how he has to reconcile that his father maybe wasn't the best person all the time, that he did a lot of maybe things that Jin wouldn't have done himself, while simultaneously helping the people. You team with a person, he figures out your identity but decides to keep it secret because he knows they need the extra help. and you're able to help them build up a resistance against these people, these Mongol group, and then you go out and fight back against them. And the whole time you're battling this poison from the leader, you constantly have to fight against it. Almost everybody else has driven them insane. That's how you find out about it in the first place. You hear a story about these villagers from this island that have come to Tsushima that have gone crazy, that are talking nonsense and seeing ghosts and visions, and you take a boat to the island, and that's how you discover this place. Once you're able to fight back, and once you kind of reconcile your past, you're able to move forward and help the people liberate Iki Island and fight back against the Mongol threat. And the final battle is really phenomenal. It's definitely an expansion worth getting. So if you want to play Ghost of Tsushima, I highly recommend the Director's Cut. I would say if you're going to play the game, play it on the PS5. If you don't have a PlayStation 5, it is playable on the PS4. I think it runs pretty well, but the PS4 Pro is definitely the preferred place. There's a lot of high fidelity. Sometimes I think the frame rate suffers on original PS4s. So if you have the option, play it on the PS5 or the PS4 Pro and play the Director's Cut to get the Iki Island expansion. It's a lot of extra content. It's all really fantastic content too. This game is really the full package. Ghost of Tsushima is probably the best first-party game that Sony's put out in a very long time. It stands up there with The Last of Us, with the God of War series. It's absolutely worth your time. If you haven't played it, this is, I'm going to say, the best open world game on the PlayStation 5 right now. So go off and play it. You will absolutely not regret it. I give Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut a platinum rank. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next one.